Brothers and sisters, I stand before you today to speak of a truth that runs contrary to everything the world shouts from the rooftops. Imagery. We live in a time where strength is often mistaken for control, where power is equated with domination, and where surrender is seen as weakness. Imagery. But let me tell you something, and I want you to hear this not just with your ears but your heart. Surrendering, true surrendering, gives you a kind of strength that control never can. It opens a door that no force can break down. It unleashes power not from without, but from within. Most of us were taught to fight, to hustle, to grind. We were told that the only way to succeed, the only way to rise, the only way to matter, was to seize control of everything and never let it go. Control your destiny. Control your time. Control your relationships. Control your money. Control your image. Control your emotions. Control the outcome. That's the message of the world. But here's the irony, brothers and sisters. The more you try to control everything, the more things spin out of your control, the tighter you grip, the more slips through your fingers. The more you strive to dominate life, the more life dominates you. That's why surrender is not weakness. Surrender is wisdom. Surrender is not defeat. Surrender is strategy. Create imagery. Surrender doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you choose what battle to fight and who to let fight it with you and for you. Imagery. There is a higher power that operates far above your human understanding. There is a universal intelligence, a divine orchestration that sees what you cannot see. And when you surrender, you're not giving up. You're giving over. You're saying, I'm willing to trade in my limited view for an unlimited vision. I'm willing to exchange my control for real guidance. I'm ready to stop pretending I have all the answers and let myself be led to something greater. You see, brothers and sisters, most of the time we walk around burdened, not because we're weak, because we're carrying things we were never meant to carry. Anxiety, stress, guilt, fear. They're not proof that you're inadequate. They're signs that you're trying to do it all alone. But when you surrender, when you truly surrender, create imagery, you shift the weight, you offload the burden, you let go of the illusion that your worth is measured by your ability to manage everything. You accept that you're a vessel, not the source. That's where your strength comes from. Let me ask you this. Have you ever held a clenched fist for too long? Imagery, try it right now. Make a tight fist and hold it. Keep holding it. Feel the tension rise in your forearm, your bicep, your shoulder. Now imagine trying to live your life with that same tension in your soul every single day. That's what it feels like to be in control of everything. But now, open your hand. Just open it. Feel the release, the relief, the peace. That's surrender. And the moment you let go, imagery, that's the moment you make room for something else, something better to enter. Peace can't enter a closed hand. Grace can't pour into a tight grip. Love can't flow into a heart that's trying to control everything. Strength is not in the flex. Strength is in the flow. Imagery. And flow only happens when you surrender. That's when miracles take place. That's when ideas begin to flood your mind. Imagery. That's when solutions start to find you instead of you chasing them. That's when people show up in your life at the exact moment you need them. Create imagery. That's when the doors you've been banging on suddenly open, not because you broke them down, imagery, but because they were waiting for your hands to be open so you could receive what was already yours. Brothers and sisters, create imagery. Surrendering gives you access to strength that's not based on effort, but alignment. It's not about what you can make happen, imagery. It's about what you allow to happen. You don't have to strive for what flows to you naturally when you're in alignment, imagery. And you can't align with divine strength while you're busy clinging to your ego's need to be in control. Your ego wants to be the driver. It wants to call the shots. But your spirit knows something deeper. Your spirit isn't trying to force outcomes. Your spirit is trying to fulfill purpose. And purpose doesn't need pressure. It needs permission. Surrender is that permission. Now, let's be honest. Surrender isn't easy. It's not comfortable. In fact, it can feel terrifying because surrender demands trust. Trust in something bigger than yourself. Trust in the timing. Trust in the process. Trust that even though you don't see how it all connects right now, you will look back one day and say, that's why that had to happen. Yet imagery. That's why that door closed. That's why that person left. That's why I didn't get what I prayed for. I was being protected. I was beat imagery. Prepared. There was strength in that kind of trust. It's not blind faith. It's bold faith. It's not passive living. It's powerful living. It's the kind of strength that can carry you through storms, not because the storm disappears, but because you're anchored in something deeper. Surrender is the anchor. It keeps you grounded when life is tossing you around. It keeps you centered when the noise around you tries to pull you in every direction. Let me tell you a truth most people don't want to face. Create imagery. The pain you've been running from, the disappointment you've been denying, create imagery. The grief you've been burying. Those things don't weaken you when you surrender to them. They strengthen you, because the moment you stop resisting what is imagery, you gain the power to transform it. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. You can't grow beyond what you won't go through. Imagery. But when you surrender to the experience, when you sit with it instead of fighting it, you access the wisdom inside the wound. And that wisdom becomes your strength. Surrendering is not about letting life walk over you. It's about walking with life, not against it. Yes, create imagery. It's about flowing with the current of your purpose rather than exhausting yourself swimming upstream in the name of pride or fear. Some of you have been trying to force a relationship that's not aligned, a career that no longer fits, a version of yourself that no longer serves you. And you wonder why you're so tired. Let me tell you, you're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're resisting too much. Surrender and watch your energy return. Surrender and watch your clarity rise. Surrender and watch doors open that you didn't even know were there. Brothers and sisters, this world glorifies control, but it's in surrender that you find true freedom. The freedom to be who you really are. Imagery. The freedom to live guided instead of grinding. The freedom to trust instead of always having to figure it out. The freedom to receive instead of constantly chasing. You were not created to live in tension. Imagery. You were not designed to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You were made to live in connection, in alignment, create imagery in harmony with the divine design of your life. And when you surrender to that design, you discover strength you didn't know you had. The strength to walk away from what's not for you. The strength to stand still when it's not time to move. The strength to wait with patience, not with anxiety. The strength to speak truth even when your voice shakes. The strength to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Imagery. The strength to let go, not because it was easy, but because holding on was killing your joy. That, my brothers and sisters, is the paradox of surrender. It looks like letting go, but it lifts you up. It looks like releasing, but it restores you. It looks like silence, but it speaks louder than noise. It looks like stillness, but it moves mountains. Because when you stop fighting the flow fights for you. When you stop pushing against the grain, grace takes over. When you stop pretending to be strong, that's when real strength shows up. I want you to remember this. There is no shame in surrender. There is only power. The power to rise, the power to heal, the power to love deeply, the power to create without fear, the power to be bold in your purpose and gentle with your journey. You don't need to prove your strength by how much you can endure. Prove your strength by how deeply you can trust. Trust in the timing. Trust in the process. Trust in the greater plan. And above all, trust that your surrender is not a setback. It's a setup. The greatest leaders, the greatest thinkers, the greatest creators. Do you know what they all have in common? They learned to get out of their own way. They learned to surrender to the higher wisdom guiding their steps. They stopped asking, how can I control this? And started asking, how can I align with this? That's the shift. That's where the magic happens. That's where the strength is born. So my message to you is simple, but it's not small. Surrender. Not because you're giving up, but because you're rising up. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Not because you're lost, but because you're being led. The moment you surrender is the moment you step into a power that no fear can touch, no obstacle can block, no enemy can defeat. Walk in that strength. Live in that strength. Lead in that strength. Because your surrender is your superpower, and the world needs your power. Not the kind that controls, but the kind that flows. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that liberates. And it all begins the moment you open your hand, open your heart, and say, I surrender. Now go, brothers and sisters. Go not with a clenched fist, but with an open hand. Not with fear, but with faith. Not with tension, but with trust. And as you walk your path, remember, real strength is not found in how tightly you can hold on. Real strength is found in how freely you can let go. Brothers and sisters, if what you've heard so far has stirred something in your soul, let it rise now. Don't suppress it. Don't second guess it. Imagery, that stirring, that whisper within you, is the echo of truth reminding you of who you truly are. And who you are is not the sum of your fears, your failures, imagery, or your frantic need to fix everything. Who you are is someone powerful beyond measure, not because of what you control, imagery, but because of what you've chosen to surrender. There is a strength in surrender that the world can't quantify. It won't show up in spreadsheets, degrees, or bank statements. You won't find it by chasing titles, likes, or applause. This strength can't be measured in metrics because it operates in miracles. It shows up when you release your grip on outcomes and open your heart to possibilities. It shows up when you say, even if I don't understand it right now, I choose to trust. It shows up when you stop striving to be perfect and start embracing what is real. So many people are walking around exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, imagery, mentally, because they are fighting battles that were never theirs to fight, carrying burdens they were never meant to bear. Imagery, they wake up every morning already on the battlefield, trying to manipulate, manage, and maneuver every aspect of life into submission. But the truth is, what you try to dominate out of fear will eventually dominate you. What you try to force will eventually fracture. What you try to control will ultimately consume you. And all the while, the strength you've been seeking has been waiting on the other side of surrender. The world will tell you to push harder, grind longer, go faster. But sometimes strength is not in acceleration. Sometimes it's in stillness. Sometimes it's not in doing more, but in letting go. And when you truly surrender, when you lay it all down, not in desperation, but in devotion, you will witness power that defies logic and reason. You will see that what seemed like the end was only the beginning, imagery. What looked like failure was actually formation. What felt like loss was setting the stage for your next level of blessing. There's a passage in every person's life where they must decide whether they will continue to fight for control or fall into trust. And let me tell you, trust takes more courage than control ever did. Trust says, I don't see the way, but I know the way exists. Trust says, I don't understand the delay, imagery, but I believe in the divine timing. Trust says, I don't know how this story ends, but I know the author is good. And that kind of trust doesn't make you weak, it makes you unshakable. Because storms may come, winds may howl, waves may crash, but if your anchor is in something deeper, something eternal, you will not be moved. Some of you are standing at the edge of a decision right now. Imagery. You're standing at the crossroads between striving and surrender. And your mind is telling you, if I let go, I'll lose everything. But your spirit is whispering, if you let go, you'll gain everything that matters. The question is create imagery. Which voice will you listen to? The voice of fear or the voice of faith? The voice of pride or the voice of purpose? The voice of ego or the voice of eternity? Brothers and sisters, it takes real strength to admit your way isn't working. It takes maturity to recognize that your plans, no matter how well-intentioned, imagery, are not always the path to peace. It takes bravery to kneel when everything in you wants to stand tall in self-sufficiency. But kneeling is not weakness. Create imagery, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that your greatest power is found in humility. It's the understanding that when you kneel in surrender, you rise in strength. Have you ever noticed that some of the most powerful people you meet don't shout to prove their strength? They carry a quiet confidence. They don't need to convince anyone. They're not trying to force their way. Why? Because they've surrendered the need to be seen, to be praised, to be validated. And in that surrender, they have become immovable. They know where their help comes from. They know who holds their future. Imagery. They know that what is meant for them will never miss them, and what misses them was never meant for them. That is strength, that is power. That is freedom. You see, surrender is not passive resignation. It is active trust. It's not saying, I'll do nothing. It's saying, create imagery. I'll do only what is aligned with my calling. It's not avoiding responsibility, imagery. It's acknowledging where your responsibility ends and where divine power begins, imagery. And that's a hard line for many of us to draw, because we've been taught to hustle for everything. But you were not created to live in constant hustle, imagery. You were created to live in holy rhythm. And that rhythm starts with surrender. Let me speak directly to your spirit now. Yes, create imagery, you are not failing just because it feels hard. You are not broken just because you're tired. You are not behind just because you're not where others are. Imagery. The real failure is refusing to surrender when your soul is begging for release. Imagery. The real breakdown is continuing to grasp for control when your growth is found in letting go. Imagery. The moment you stop resisting the process is the moment you start receiving the promise. And that promise is not always what you imagine, but it is always what you need. Brothers and sisters, imagery, everything you are clinging to with clenched fists. Every outcome, every fear, every image, imagery, every plan. What if it's the very thing standing in the way of your breakthrough? What imagery? What if your next level isn't something you have to fight for, but something you have to flow into? What if what you're asking for has already been prepared? Imagery. But it's waiting for you to get out of your own way. Surrender is the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be. It's not the easy road. Create imagery, but it's the elevated one. It's not the loud road, but it's the lasting one. When you surrender, you begin to live in alignment with the deepest truths of your being. You stop forcing relationships that drain you. Create imagery. You stop chasing opportunities that deplete you. You stop betraying yourself to please people who don't even see the real you. You start choosing peace over pressure, purpose over popularity, alignment over appearance. And when you do, your entire life begins to shift. Doors close, but better ones open. People leave, but your soul expands. The path narrows, but your vision widens. And don't be surprised when things begin to fall apart after you surrender. That's not a sign that it's not working. That's a sign that it is. Because surrender shakes everything that was built on a false foundation. It exposes what isn't stable. It dismantles what isn't authentic. It burns away what isn't real. And yes, that process can be painful, but what remains after the fire is pure. What stands after the storm is unshakable. Imagery. And what rises after the release is stronger, wiser, freer than ever before. You will find that surrender doesn't make your life smaller. It expands it. Imagery. It doesn't limit your potential. It liberates it. Create imagery, because when you stop trying to be the architect of every detail and start becoming the vessel of something higher, creativity flows, courage rises, imagery and clarity returns. You no longer live from scarcity. You live from source. You no longer operate from fear. You move from faith. Create imagery. You no longer seek approval. You walk in authority because you know who you are. You know whose you are. And you know that surrender is not the end. It's the beginning of everything real. Let me say this one last time so it lands in your spiriting. Imagery. Surrender is strength. Not the kind that intimidates others, but the kind that inspires them. Not the kind that lifts weights, but the kind that lifts burdens. Create imagery. Not the kind that shouts to be heard, but the kind that whispers and still changes the room. That's the strength you carry inside you. And it's been waiting for your yes. Your yes to release, to trust. Your yes to stop striving and start flowing. So take a deep breath, brothers and sisters. Release what you've been holding. Lay down what you've been gripping. And step boldly into the strength that only surrender can give. The world may not understand it, but your soul does. And once you experience that kind of power, the power that comes not from force, but from faith, you will never go back to fighting for control again. This is your moment, your invitation, your call. Surrender, not just once, but daily, in your thoughts, in your actions, in your relationships, in your dreams. Because every act of surrender is a step into strength, and every step into strength brings you closer to the life you were born to live. Walk in that strength, live in that trust, stand in that surrender. And let your life be the evidence that real power doesn't come from the hands that hold on. It comes from the heart that lets go. So brothers and sisters, as we close this message today, let this truth settle deep into your heart. True strength is not in how much you can carry imagery, but in how much you can release. It's not in the battles you win through force, but in the peace you gain through faith. Imagery. It's not about proving you can do it all alone, but realizing you were never meant to. Surrender is not the end of your power. It is the beginning of your purpose. It is not the loss of your will. It is the alignment of your will with a higher calling, a greater vision, a divine rhythm that knows the way even when you do not. Every moment you choose surrender over struggle, trust over tension, and peace over pressure, you step more fully into the unstoppable, unshakable, undeniable power that was placed in you from the very beginning. So walk from this moment with open hands, clear eyes, and a heart anchored in truth. Let the world chase control. You, child of purpose, you walk in surrender. And watch how strength finds you, fills you, and flows through you like never before.